The call came early in the morning. It was the local patrol chief. His voice was short, tense. They found something in the basement of the Donovan house. You need to get here now. At first, I thought it was nothing serious. Some old junk, maybe an animal. But the way his voice sounded told me otherwise. By the time I arrived, the yard was full of people. The construction workers who'd been doing renovations stood pale and quiet. One of them told me they had removed a few planks under the stairs and discovered an old freezer, still running. Curiosity made them open it, but the smell forced them to slam it shut and run outside. I went down into the basement. The freezer sat hidden under the stairs, dust-covered, humming quietly. We cut the power and opened the lid. The smell hit like a wall, heavy and sweet. Inside, a human body, curled into itself, wrapped in plastic and tape. This wasn't a fresh crime. This was 20 years of silence staring back at us. We called in forensics and sealed the entire yard. Neighbors came out, whispering, watching over the fence. Everyone knew this family. Everyone remembered Jasmine Donovan. No one said it out loud. But we all thought the same thing. This had to be her. When they finally lifted the frozen body out of the ice, I felt the weight of the entire town on my shoulders. Someone had kept the secret for almost 2 decades. And now it was over. To understand what happened, we had to go back 20 years. The summer of 2000 was the last time anyone saw Jasmine alive. She was 24, studying sociology in the city. Quiet, bright, with big plans for the future. She spent the summer back home, helping her parents in the yard. Meeting up with friends from childhood. Talking about finishing college and moving away for good. And then, just a few days later, she was gone. No calls. No letters. Her room was untouched. Bed neatly made, books stacked on the desk. College bag leaning against the wardrobe. Her parents and older sister told everyone the same thing. She left for work abroad. She's fine. But nobody ever saw a single letter or heard her voice again. Years passed. 5 of them, before the family officially reported her missing. 5 years of silence. When I saw that date in the file later, I kept asking myself the same thing. Who waits half a decade to report their daughter missing? And what happened inside that house while the rest of the town stayed quiet? As months passed, the story about Jasmine working abroad started to sound thinner and thinner. Friends kept coming to the house, knocking, asking for news. They always heard the same line. She's fine. She'll get in touch. But Jasmine never did. One childhood friend later told us that she visited the house several times that year. She said Jasmine's room looked like she had just stepped out for a minute. Clothes folded, books waiting on the desk. A cup of pens still sitting on the shelf. Nothing was packed. Whispers spread through town. Some said Jasmine and Sarah argued often. Others spoke of money problems and family debts. A few claimed they heard shouting coming from the house days before Jasmine disappeared. Her friends organized search parties. They combed through fields, woods, rivers. They found nothing. And yet they refused to give up. They went to the police station more than once, demanding the case stay open. But with no evidence, the investigation stalled. For the outside world, Jasmine's case faded away. But for those who loved her, it became an open wound that would not heal. Life in town went on. But in that house, time stood still. Police searched the house from top to bottom. Every rug lifted, every wall inspected. Basement and attic cleared. The yard was dug up, tracking dogs led through the fields and woods. Nothing. No blood. No sign of struggle. No witness who saw Jasmine leave that house. Her parents calmly repeated the same story. She's working. She's fine. Sarah sat with arms crossed and answered only when she had to. Neighbors couldn't offer much either. No one saw her with a bag, no bus station sightings. No ticket purchases, nothing. She had just vanished. Months later, the investigation slowed down. The case was marked unsolved. And in the official report, one cold line remained. No evidence of a crime. For me, those were the hardest words. No evidence, but a void that screamed louder than anything we had found. Jasmine hadn't just walked away. But proving that was another story. Years went by. The Donovan house became a shadow at the edge of town. Neighbors stopped asking where Jasmine was. Nobody wanted to look her parents in the eye. People talked in whispers. Some believed she really had gone abroad. Others said she had never left, at least not alive. The house stayed frozen in time. Windows shut, doors rarely opened. Some said at night they saw lights turn on in just one room. Jasmine's old room. For the police, this was just another archived case. For her friends, it was a nightmare that never stopped. Finding the body changed everything. The basement was sealed and combed through inch by inch. Every stain, every scratch photographed and sent for analysis. Forensics found tiny traces of blood on the freezer lid. DNA confirmed what everyone feared. It was Jasmine Donovan. After nearly 2 decades, the truth was finally speaking. The cold case was now the hottest file in the department. A new investigative team was formed. I was assigned to lead it. This was no longer a missing person case. It was a murder. A few days later, the official confirmation arrived. Yes, the body was Jasmine. The media storm hit instantly. Headlines screamed. Missing student found in freezer after 19 years. The town went silent. Crowds gathered outside the Donovan house. Some prayed, others just stood and stared. People began speaking more openly. They told stories about loud fights in the house. About how Jasmine and Sarah barely spoke in those months before she disappeared. A town that had been quiet for 2 decades was now at the center of national attention. And no one could look away anymore. The evidence pointed in one direction: Sarah Donovan. Her fingerprints were on the freezer. Her DNA was found in the basement. When we came to arrest her, she didn't resist. The neighbors stood behind fences. Some crying, some just watching in silence. Sarah didn't ask why. Didn't cry, didn't shout. She just looked tired, like she had been waiting for this day too. At the station, she sat down in the interrogation room and stared at the wall. She showed no fear. No sadness. Only exhaustion. The first interrogation lasted hours. Sarah denied everything. Said she hadn't touched the freezer in years. But the evidence kept stacking up. Blood on the basement floor, Jasmine's. The autopsy revealed 5 heavy blows to the head. No defensive wounds, she never had a chance to fight back. As we confronted Sarah with the facts, her story changed. First she said she knew nothing. Then she said Jasmine went missing that night. And that the family decided not to talk about it. It wasn't a confession. But each change in her story was another crack in the wall. Investigators started digging into motives. Neighbors spoke of constant fights. Closed doors, yelling, long silences after. There was talk about the inheritance. The house, the land. Some said Jasmine wanted to sell her share and move away. Others whispered about jealousy, about a boyfriend. About Sarah resenting her sister's success at school. No single motive was ever fully proven. But together, the stories painted a picture of a house filled with tension for years. For us, that meant just one thing. We had to turn that picture into a case strong enough for court. This was only the beginning. After weeks of interviews and cross-checking evidence, the prosecutor's office filed charges against Sarah Donovan. She was officially accused of murdering her sister Jasmine. The town split in half. Some said they had always suspected it. Others swore Sarah couldn't have done it. Candles and messages appeared on the fence outside the house. For Jasmine, one said. No names signed. For us, this was the end of the investigation phase. And the start of a long battle in court. Every photo, every trace, every timeline had to be perfect. Cold cases can collapse under the smallest mistake. This one could not. The first day of trial was chaos. Reporters everywhere, cameras flashing. Locals filling the gallery just to watch. The prosecution opened with the full timeline. The disappearance, the freezer, the DNA. Forensic experts spent days walking the jury through photos, showing how the body had been wrapped, how the cable was positioned to keep the freezer running for years. Then came the neighbors. Their stories were imperfect but lined up where it mattered. Fights in the house, shouting. And then, silence. The defense tried to discredit them, calling their memories unreliable after so long. But some brought old notebooks with dates written down in ink from that exact summer. Hard to argue with notes that have been gathering dust for 20 years. The third week of trial brought the most important testimony. A forensic pathologist explained how the pattern of skull fractures proved at least 5 deliberate blows. Not a fall. Not an accident. Someone stood over Jasmine and didn't stop until she was gone. The jury was shown multiple photos of the basement, where the freezer sat, where the blood traces were found, where the extension cord ran along the wall. A former neighbor testified that he heard a violent argument just days before Jasmine vanished. Back then, he thought it was just another family fight. Now, he was sure that was the night it happened. The defense floated the idea that someone else might have put the body in the freezer. But there were no traces of anyone else. No prints, no DNA, no evidence of a break-in. I watched the jury closely. Each new piece of evidence weighed on them. I could see it in their faces. They were starting to see the full picture. When the defense took over, they tried to poke holes everywhere. Their expert suggested the injuries might not all have happened on the same day. They hinted Jasmine could have been suicidal, that she may have wanted to disappear. But they couldn't explain the freezer. Couldn't explain the plastic and the tape. Couldn't explain why anyone would disappear, but leave their clothes, books, and shoes behind. Sarah asked to speak once. She said she had nothing to do with it. That they were trying to destroy her life. Her words fell flat. The jury kept their eyes down. The courtroom grew heavier every day. Every testimony was either a shadow of doubt, or another nail sealing the case shut. We knew we were close to the end. but everything depended on the closing arguments. The prosecutor's closing statement was cold and precise. He spoke for almost an hour, calmly connecting every thread. When you put all the points together, he told the jury, you don't just get random dots. You get a picture. And that picture shows that Jasmine did not leave. She was killed and hidden. Right here, in the very house she grew up in. He reminded them of the 5 years of silence before the missing report. The lies told to neighbors. The stories about working abroad with no single letter or ticket to prove it. It was the first time, I thought, that someone was saying the truth out loud for everyone to hear. The jury sat frozen. You could almost hear them thinking. When he finished, the judge instructed the jury. And they left the room. Now all we could do was wait. Waiting for a verdict is the hardest part. Hour after hour crawled by. People paced the hallways. Sipped coffee. Whispered nervously. I sat on the bench and went through my notes one last time. Checking every piece of evidence in my head. The case was strong. But all it takes is one juror to say I'm not sure. By evening we were called back in. The jury filed in silently. No expression on their faces. The room went so quiet you could hear a pen drop. When the judge began to read, my heart was pounding like I was the one on trial. This moment carried the weight of 20 years of silence and frustration. Guilty. The word echoed through the courtroom. Sarah Donovan, sentenced to 15 years in prison. For a moment, no one moved. The jury sat still. Her parents lowered their heads. A reporter quietly left the room. The judge explained the verdict. 5 deliberate blows with a blunt object. Years of hiding the body. No mitigating circumstances. When it was over, Sarah stood, looked briefly toward the gallery, and said nothing. She was taken out the side door. Outside, people were waiting with candles. Someone had left a bouquet of white roses on the steps. I stayed there for a long moment, staring at them. Justice was done. But it didn't feel like victory. Just the end of a long nightmare. Weeks later, the defense filed an appeal. They claimed the witnesses were unreliable. The evidence circumstantial. We went through everything again. Files, timelines, photos. Every step had to be bulletproof. The Supreme Court heard the case and upheld the original verdict. The evidence was solid. The conviction stood. When we heard the decision, the office went silent. No cheering, no celebration. Just quiet relief. The case was finally closed. For good. Sarah Donovan was transferred to prison. There were no cameras, no reporters. Just a van pulling away. And leaving the street empty. Neighbors watched from their windows. Some said, now it's over. But everyone knew the truth. It's never really over. The house stood quiet again. The lights in Jasmine's room were out. The nightmare was done. But the silence felt heavier than ever. Today, the Donovan house stands empty. Sometimes someone leaves a candle on the steps. But no one says who. The basement stairs are still there. But the freezer is gone. Only the memory of it remains. For me, this case is a reminder that secrets never stay buried forever. You can hide them. Lock them away. Seal them under wood and dust. But one day, the truth comes out. At the academy, I tell young detectives, murder doesn't expire. If you keep looking, You will eventually find what others missed. Jasmine Donovan finally has a name on a gravestone. Her story is finished, at least officially. But for those who knew her, and for the town that lived with the secret, the wound will always stay. When I pass by that house, I still picture Jasmine walking down the road with her bag, never knowing what was waiting. And I remind myself every time, even the darkest secret will one day find the light.